Hola class, welcome to part two, the other three articles. And the interesting component of these other three articles is these tend to be more social media branding articles, and they tend to be more recent compared to the first three. So think of the first three as setting a foundation, and the next three is sort of like application. So the first of these, the one thing you must get right when building a brand. Which companies are not using social media correctly? All of them? Sorry. 95% of them? You know, this comes back to the same exact thing. You need a reason why to use social. Most companies do not have that reason why. They're just doing. They have a Facebook page. They build the Facebook page, and they don't know what to do with it. They have 100,000 fans in the Facebook page, and they don't know what to do with them. It's a problem. And then they end up giving like coupons away to their most loyal people that would have probably already bought from the brand anyway. You need a reason why to use social media. If your reason is to build incredible experiences, that's a good reason. If your reason is for customer service and problem solving, that's a good reason. Is your reason for disseminating technical information through a blog? That's a good reason. You know, if you think of a CRM mentality, that's my favorite reason. You want to maintain an existing relationship with your customers because you want them to buy more from you in the future. Social media is the best way to do that. It's the cheapest way to do that. It's the fastest way to do it. Some companies are fearful of social media and refuse to. Are some companies fearful of social media and refuse to adapt? Oh, yeah. Absolutely, positively. They're fearful because they don't understand it. They don't have a strategic reason to use it, and therefore don't want to go there. And here's the part when I do consulting, when I talk to companies, and I basically have this conversation. There used to be a day 10 or 15 years ago where the corporations controlled all the messaging. It was a one-way world. We don't live in that world anymore. You have an entire generation, happens to be Generation Y, the largest generation in the United States, the largest demographic, and one of the most powerful, I might add, that they are growing up in a bottom-up two-way world. And brands that refuse to adapt, these consumers are having the conversation, Generation Y is having the conversation about your brand without you. And you're not part of it. So do you still want to refuse to adapt? That's your call. You're going to sure look like a grandfather. How difficult is it to continually improve the promise made to customers in a way that does not alienate or overshadow the original promise, which is likely the company's most competitive advantage? Well, whatever your competitive advantage is, you cannot maintain it forever because consumers change in their behavior and customers are going to come at, and competition's going to come after you. You can't do it. You need a sustainable competitive advantage, not a competitive advantage. BlackBerry had an amazing competitive advantage. They had an incredible keyboard. They had the messaging system, which was global. And they really were the first company that you could do email and text really well from a mobile device. Well, guess what? Apple showed up and started giving people apps. And then all of a sudden, the culture around what a BlackBerry was started to change. People wanted apps. They wanted to check movie listings. They wanted to check the weather. They wanted to do other things that a BlackBerry does not do. What BlackBerry did was not enough. Their competitive advantage was not sustainable given the culture change around them. So guess what? Apple evolved, Android evolved, BlackBerry did not. BlackBerry's going to get sold. They went from, let's see, somewhere around 40 to 40, mid 40s market share to 5% market share in 4 years. That's how fast it can happen. What are the disadvantages of using social media, assuming that it was used correctly by companies? The disadvantages of using social media, or some of the challenges with social media, is you have to realize that you're not in control. The crowd is. The crowd decides. You're an active participant, but you're not the leader. The more you try to make leaders and go top down, guess what? The more the crowd is going to revolt. It happens on Facebook. It happens on eBay. It happens within social media. It happens within Twitter. Every time Twitter makes a major change, the crowd revolts. Disadvantages using social media. I think one of the big challenges of using social media is it's always on. We're on the Super Bowl host committee, and we're having this constant discussion as how long is the command center going to be open? Even beyond events that are not programmed, how long do we keep it going? Because social media doesn't go away. People are still using it. I think that's a big challenge that firms have. I mean, if you're Campbell Soup, do you have someone up 24 hours a day? We're talking about Campbell Soup here, but do you do it? Does achieving the goal of maintaining your brand promise and following the rules of social media create a potential conflict? Your brand promise and following the rules, I don't see how there would be a conflict, because anything you do in social has to be congruent with the brand. Why would you do something incongruent with the brand on social? I'm not sure what the question was asking there. If there's something more specific you want to ask me, shoot me an email with this one. Why is the article called The One Thing? What is the one thing you must get right? It mentions many, many, many important things. Well, my one thing that I'm going to keep repeating and repeating and repeating, and you're going to hear it from me, and you're going to hear it from me again and again and again, you have to understand that it's a crowd, and you're more of a manager of the crowd. You are not the leader of the crowd. Most firms in social get that wrong. If that's the one thing you get, I'll be really happy about that. Illuminating the consumer with segmented social media seems like a great way to enhance brand value. Does segmentation have a point where the metrics don't justify the segmentation? My knee-jerk reaction with this question is no. And the reason why is in a one-way top-down world, if we over-segmented and the population was so small, it was extremely expensive to get to that population. With social, the tools to reach a very small population is not expensive. Even if it comes and you include the salary of someone to monitor that particular population. But really, if you have a small, ultra small little segment, it's a hell of a lot easier to keep track of these people on a Facebook page or on a Twitter list than it would be to maintain a one-way, old-school marketing targeting campaign with them. Even direct mail, which isn't all that expensive, would be way more expensive than just using social media. How do companies get the fundamentals wrong or forget them when they're so basic and trivial to the marketing process? God, there's a lot of things I can say here. I think the easiest answer is the same answer that happens to us in our lives. we as individuals get really, really busy and we lose the forest for the trees. We write a to-do list and we forget to look at it. We're too busy. We prioritize wrong or improperly, where we don't decide what is a big rock and what is a small rock, and we spend too much time working on small rocks and forget about the big fundamental rocks. And the other things that happens within companies, though, is we have politics, and people have pet projects, and culture gets twisted within a firm, and you start doing something that you used to do really well, not so well, because either the reward mechanisms within the company change, or politics within the company gets weird, where someone I'll pick on Steve Jobs for a moment. Steve was a very quirky individual. He had a lot of quirks. Well, there's just some things that you had to work around his quirks. Otherwise, you would never be able to get the conversation going in the firm. And that's a politics thing. Firms that are not market-oriented spend more time within the politics and arguing and dealing with internal problems than they do versus external. And that's how they get, pushed off the rails. What happens when a company unintentionally alienates social media participants? The crowd goes berserk. And if the crowd goes berserk really, really vociferously, then the traditional media, the CNNs of the world, the Huffington Post isn't traditional media, the Time magazines of the world, and the Business Weeks of the world, and the Fortune, and the Forbes, and the Wall Street Journals, and the New York Times of the world. If something goes beyond social media, if the revolt gets really, really big, traditional media pick it up and amplify it. How can a marketer turn the situation around? Well, usually every time within the last 5 years that Mark Zuckerberg screwed up, he ended up flying to New York the next day or within a day or so, sitting on the couch with Matt Lauer on the Today Show and basically apologizing. Time, Beacon, every time they change their terms of service and there's a revolt within Facebook, you have to apologize. And, people back down. Look what Netflix did. Netflix was going to split into Netflix and Quickstir or Quick Media or Quick something. And, the crowd went nuts. They lost users. You got to back down. You got to react. Does the company's logo matter when creating a brand? Hell yeah. The logo is part of the identity of the brand. To the point where people know the Golden Arches or the Coca-Cola logo or the Nike logo better than their company's than the flag than the country that they live in. It's the logo helps create the identity with the brand. It's part of the identity. The more things that the more images and touch points you can do into a neural net of someone. A jingle, a song, a motto, a logo, a slogan, icons, a mascot. That all help create identity to the brand. Makes it more individually identified. Okay. Branding in the digital age. Are the roles for marketers all that different from their traditional roles? I'm going to say yes. And I think more than ever before that brand managers need to be more of a tour guide, cruise director, cheerleader. I mean, it used to be the case and we're going to talk about this very extensively when we talk about leadership in the leadership module, that brand managers were top down. They decided whatever the brand was going to be, and then they sold that myth. That's not the case anymore. We're seeing the reverse. At least the smart brand managers. See, marketing managers, brand managers, chief marketing officers, the average tenure for these individuals was very short. A year and a half, 2 years on the high side. Because quite often, they got lucky. They initiated change, and change was good enough, but it wasn't a home run. Just because there was some reaction from the corporation, then people reacted a little bit. But it really wasn't an overall change. Sometimes marketers just got lucky. You know, what in a top-down kind of a world, they found some kind of a sweet spot. And that's why the brand took off. They fell into it. A lot of other marketers tried something, it didn't go anywhere, and they get fired. Because they were just shooting from the hip. It was a top-down kind of a mentality. Will the journey continue to follow this process for a few years at this point? Do you think there will be a change in the very near future? I think it's accelerating. I think when I started my journey into these articles in 2003, I think the acceleration towards the crowd becoming more powerful is getting faster and more influential. Because we have an entire generation growing up in a bottom-up world. And these bottom-up people that are Generation Y, Generation X, which is after the Y, they're older, they had some of it, but they were probably, and I'm one of them, was exposed more to a top-down world than a bottom-up world. Now we have people that grew up completely in a bottom-up world. Case in point, I grew up in a world where, Thursday night was must-see TV. And you tuned in on Thursday night because you didn't want to miss it. We now have an entire generation of consumers that not only do they not watch the shows on an actual television, they watch it on a mobile device, but they watch it when they want to watch it on demand. They decide when they're going to watch it. That's a different thing. And then my kids, which are underneath the Generation Y, they're growing up in this world too. So within 20 years, you're going to have half of the U.S. population and half of the global population, for that matter, that grew up with a bottom-up world. They grew up with Digg. They grew up with, bookmarking sites like that you decide what's popular and it rises to the top. It's accelerating. What kinds of things can large-scale companies, brands do post-purchase to ensure that the bond is created without becoming intrusive or annoying to the consumer? Well, even if you become... I think one of the keys to Apple is that damn Genius Bar. That creates that experience of having a problem, going to the mall and getting it fixed. Basically for free. That's a big, big deal. If you solve people's problems post-purchase, you're going to have a bond that's going to be very tough to break. Really, really, really things. But if you also forget about problem solving, if you find ways to imbue the brand experience post-purchase, yeah. And if the consumer doesn't want to participate in all of them or any of them, they don't. They don't have to become they don't have to follow someone on Twitter. They don't have to become a fan on the Facebook page. But certainly tell them the advantages to doing so, the benefits to doing so, and let's see if they can self-select into it. Don't make it a default. Reviews of products on Amazon seem to be a hit amongst consumers. Wouldn't it be very beneficial for all companies that are reevaluating the marketing techniques to make their first steps by looking at where they rank on Amazon? Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla of online. They are the Walmart of online. And They're, even though they're not, it's I don't know if I would say Amazon should be the only data point that one should look at. If we want to go back to earlier in the first video that we talked about triangulation, I think you would be crazy to ignore Amazon, but I don't think Amazon should be your only data point. Especially depending if your product's not a digital product and you have extensive distribution through other channels. How do you determine how much effort, money to spend? Also depending on the category. If you're a book publisher, Amazon's the biggest book seller in the world. So yeah. But if you sell gym equipment and treadmills, I don't think Amazon's the best place for you to get all your data from. How do you determine how much effort, money to spend on keeping your customers' bond versus breaking customers away from the bonds that they have already made with other companies? Well, this is the same. We answered this question earlier. I mean, you're not going to expend beyond margin you earn from a particular thing. You're not going to do marketing efforts that are going to cost more than the margin that you earned, because then you're going to turn yourself from black to red. But at the same time, if you're spending marketing dollars in a one-way, non-bonding kind of a way, why would you do it? If you have $100 million a year marketing budget that you're spending on TV ads and print ads and magazine ads and radio ads, why? At the very least, take half of it away and put it into social. Focus more on the post-purchase through social. CRM type mentality. Are there any proven strategies for coordinating efforts among different areas of the company to prevent issues from broken links in online media to mixed messages from sales? How can a company convert to being market driven to support CDJ efforts? CDJ, Consumer Decision Journey, I'm sure that's what CDJ is. I sent you earlier in the semester a link from one of my blogs, a blog post, talking about the difference between market driven and market driving. Okay? Now, both market driven and market driving, I feel, fall under the umbrella of a market oriented firm. It's different versions of a market driven versus market driven and market driving. Both market-driven firms and market-driving firms are both market-oriented. If you have a firm that does a very good job with the journey to imbue an incredible experience and therefore get to identity, that's also a CDJ effort. I don't know if you need to be different. I don't see where this is the word that I'm having a problem with, convert. Because I see this as being something like this, all fitting under the umbrella of being market-oriented. Now, you do have to coordinate efforts across different areas of the firm. That's the essence of market orientation, and that's the hardest part of market orientation. Why customers are driven by advocacy rather than commercial advertisements? It's because you trust what your friend tells you versus a commercial that you see in a magazine. Word of mouth is significantly more powerful than messaging from a corporation. You trust your friends and your peer group significantly more than this. That's argument enough for you to go knee deep, to dive into the deep end of the social media pool. Shall marketers investigate consumer purchase behavior? They do investigate marketing consumer purchase behavior. Yes. No ifs, ands, or buts. Should the consider and buy stage gradually move out of the options due to the higher cost and lower influence? Consider and buy? You still have, prior to actual purchase, some cognitive thought processes weighing the pros and cons. I don't know how this is never going to go away, and then you're eventually going to make a purchase. I don't know how they move out of the options due to higher cost and lower influence. I'm not. Maybe he's saying something about that in the article, but. And going back to Susan Fournier's article, not everybody wants to develop that bond, so they don't. I like the CDJ journey. I'm a fan of that. This article seems to advocate a complete upheaval of old traditional ways of marketing. But the author of the article says you must not forgo traditional marketing. Who's right? I have a difficult time with traditional marketing in the fact that it's not relationship building. But more important than anything else, if I can't track my ROI, I don't like to spend the money. To me, that's the bigger issue. That's the bigger issue. I think, me being cynical, I think he said this specifically because he's a consultant and he doesn't want to piss off a client base. You know, it's easier to get people to, and this is just flat out arguing, this is just, rhetoric strategy. If it's harder to be persuasive by starting off with saying all traditional marketing should disappear forever. It's easier to go to a client and say, okay, we're going to do some of the new with the old. That's an easier pill to swallow. Is marketing strategy appropriate for all businesses? Is this marketing strategy appropriate for all businesses? If not, how do you know if this is right for a specific company? Well, this question has come up in different forms in previous videos, but I'll reiterate. The higher the frequency of purchase and the closer that the final decision maker is also the buyer and the user, if that's the case, then yes, this is the marketing strategy to go with. But in many B2B scenarios, locomotives, airplane engines, the aerospace industry, medical devices, this is harder. And usually what happens is that you need social media for one specific part of this loyalty loop. Maybe just troubleshooting. Maybe just new product development. It can't be everything to maintain the relationship with the consumer because it's too complex and there's too many other people involved. I mean, just think about aircraft engines. There's just too much involved for that, for there just to be one Twitter hashtag or handle or channel within, or a Facebook page just for that. What are the difficulties in convincing management that marketing should lead the way in putting in systems to act on customer insights? Well, upper management might be concerned that it might not be worth, there's no ROI. You have to show them where the ROI is. Upper management might have a difficult time with change. Upper management might not realize that the culture is evolving beyond them. If they grow up in a top-down world, they expect this, if they're still reading if a newspaper is still getting delivered to their house, guess what? They still believe in the top-down world. That's a tough argument. Finally, the most fun of all the articles this week is the Pinterest one. Hopefully, you printed this out and you kind of look at it all as one page. Try that. I mean, I had a staple in it originally and then I broke it apart. This is neat. I particularly like this because this article is very recent. I particularly like this because there was a lot of specific statistics in it. I particularly liked it because I don't know that much about Pinterest. And I need to expand my knowledge base on some of these growing social platforms. How can companies use this information to their advantage? I think this is a very easy question with a very easy answer. Oh my God. Pinterest is that powerful. I mean, we have this question down here. You know, do you find it interesting that only 41% of purchases that were caused by Pinterest happened within the first week? Oh my God, can you believe the number's that high? Is the way I read that. It's not only 41%. Think about a coupon, all right? You put an incredible offer in the form of a coupon and you slide that in the Sunday paper. If you get a 1% return on that coupon, there's people popping champagne bottles in Cincinnati, Ohio at Procter & Gamble. You don't get a 1% return on that marketing effort. You're trying to tell me that Pinterest can skew 41% of purchases just because someone pinned it? Oh my God. Yeah, you can use this information to your advantage. See, how many ads have you seen in television and print? Like us on Facebook. Screw Facebook. Start talking about Pinterest. Pinterest seems a hell of a lot more powerful than Facebook is. And Pinterest is 1/100th of the size. What does data gathering, analysis, and implementation process look like when using Pinterest buying patterns to improve marketing efforts? To be honest with you, isn't that exactly what this article is? We gathered data, we did an analysis, and maybe the implementation part is not there, but the data analysis and the data gathering and the analysis sure tells us how influential Pinterest is. So, if I were, you figure out ways that if people have pinned something and they haven't purchased within 24 hours, you want to make sure that they actually go forward. See if you can goose the pin even further. See if you can give them information such as, well, you're really smart because all these other people pinned this too. You must have made a really good decision. That might tip them over to actual purchase. Or if you have the margin, throw them another coupon and say, hey, you really pinned this. I don't know if you're going to buy or not, but if you buy within the next 24 hours, we'll ship you something else for free. We'll give you a free gift with purchase. I mean, ladies, do you buy cosmetics without getting a free gift with purchase? Do you? How does Pinterest balance ad revenue without impeding the choices and alienating their community? Well, this is the exact question that Pinterest is wrestling with at the moment. They are going to start imbuing more ads into the Pinterest community. And we're wondering if these metrics are going to hold or not. They have to. I know Pinterest is profitable. But really, what Pinterest should do is they should think about this from more of a sales commission perspective. It's called affiliative marketing. Okay? And there was a real big brouhaha about this 18 months ago or so when Pinterest was in its infancy. That it works something like this. If I were to put something on my blog about a book that I really recommend and you guys should read, if I had an affiliative marketing program with Amazon, and you went from my blog, and there's like an Amazon logo, buy here on Amazon, and you go over to Amazon, and you actually make the purchase of that book, and because of cookies and all like that, they easily can track that back to where it came from. The click originated from my website. Well, guess what? I get a percentage of that purchase. I get a commission. It's affiliative marketing. The crazier thing is if you go to Amazon from my website and you buy that book, but you continue your shopping and you buy a treadmill in the same shopping cart and purchase, I get a percentage of the treadmill too. It's interesting. It's called affiliative marketing. And what Pinterest did is people were pinning things, and if people did not have an affiliative marketing program themselves, Pinterest wrote code that Pinterest got the affiliative marketing sales commission. And they were doing this within their terms of service, and they were not telling people that they were doing this. And Pinterest actually had a very, very nice revenue stream just from affiliative marketing alone. And then they got sued. And to be honest with you, I don't remember how that all ended up. I have a feeling that they're now splitting the affiliative marketing revenue. I think that's how it ended up. Okay? Does Pinterest help brick and mortar or online retailer stores more? I don't know. I didn't see anything in this article. We know that we have some showrooming aspect, okay, but it's not as big as we thought it was. If you were to ask me if I was a betting man, I would say online. But you know, the difference between what's online and what's not online, you know, chances are you may be buying from Black and White through their online site, but they're really a brick and mortar retailer. You know, there's really very few online only retailers. Amazon's more of the exception than the rule. Right? Are there discounts on certain items that are eligible only if you pint them? Perhaps. To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to this question because I'm not, you know, incredibly intimate with Pinterest. Perhaps. There's no reason if you want to combine this with this, sure. The question is that if they already like you, why would you, and they already pin you, I would be careful with giving them too much more of a discount then, because you almost have a 50-50 chance that they're going to purchase anyway. So why would you drop your margins even more by giving them more of a discount? So you got to be careful about that. A free gift with purchase might be a better route. Does a Pinterest list where you can buy these products? I bet you they give you a link to them, affiliative marketing wise way. Why don't stores start using Pinterest to attract customers? Because they're stupid? Sorry, didn't mean to be crass. Chances are they don't know about it. Chances are they know what Pinterest is, but they haven't read this article. I mean, think about this. This isn't 6 months old. This is new. Cutting edge. Do you find it interesting that only 41... All right, I did this. I think it's very interesting, but the word only really hangs me up. I think this is an unbelievable number. There is no way in the world that you spend $3.5 million for a 60-second ad, for a 30-second ad on the Super Bowl, and 41% of the people that saw the ad go out and purchase the next day, or purchase within a week. No. This is an astronomical number when it comes to marketing, ROI. Why do you think it would be to pin the item? Is it the top of mind? If you look back at our previous article, and we have the loyalty loop, this is a fantastic mashup with this. You're going around in this consider stage. All of a sudden your consider stage gets highly influenced, and the evaluation, you have friends that you're following their pins and you think that they're really trendy, and because they're trendy, all of a sudden your consider and evaluate just whip, they pinned it, I'm going to pin it. I need a new blouse, this is the one I'm buying because this is what the trendy person said that is really hot right now. It's not only top of mind, but it's like someone telling you a really, really good stock tip. If they're really, really know what they're doing about stocks and they give you the stock tip, chances are you're just like, oh, they're really smart. I'm going to do what they do. Right? On the contrary, shouldn't retailers be happy rather than threatened that this channel of marketing is increasing their revenues without having to... Okay, let me read this again. On the contrary, shouldn't retailers be happy rather than threatened that this channel of marketing, Pinterest, is increasing their revenues without how... Yeah. I don't know why on the contrary is part of the front of this part of the question. But retailers should not be bitching about showrooming, excuse the language. They should be happy that they're getting this much more people coming to the store and actually purchasing, because this is an astronomical number. Okay? I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. Let me wrap this up. Stop recording.